Doesn't it suck when you're not somebody's first pick? Yeah, I mean, this goes for anything. They're not your first pick for a friend, for a partner, for really anything, I suppose. Sometimes the only thing in people's lives that consider them first is their animals, which seems to be a running trend anymore, especially people when they go home to an empty house. We've never had it better and yet simultaneously worse, right? Because on one hand, we have basically every commodity under the sun. I mean, just think about it. Right now I'm sitting in front of a computer with three monitors. I mean, people could even have dreamed about that even just 20 years ago or whatever. At the same time, we're more lonely, and everybody talks about this. Everybody's like, oh, our screens are making us more lonely, but I don't know if that's necessarily the truth. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive here, but let me explain. So, if people really had the ability, because, like, just because there's a screen doesn't mean that you can't go out and talk with your friends or whatever. It's more so like people have been commodified. That's really a lot of the problem here is that if people are just commodities, then you can throw them away, right? Nobody wants to put effort into a relationship, whether that be friends, family, etc. And I really do think a lot of that comes down to how much you see somebody. Because if you were in the 17 or 1800s and you saw somebody, I mean, if you lived in a town, sure, you'd see people. But if you lived in the boonies or like in a rural area, you really did not see people. And people were sort of your lifeblood. It was a rarity to see people. But now that everybody's everywhere, it's just so easy to be like, oh, well, that's just another person. I mean, look at all the stuff you can watch on whatever social media. Like, people die and then nobody bats an eye. And I really find that, like, obviously sick and disturbing that nobody has any emotion just because it happens through a computer screen. So I wonder how that translates for those same people to maybe witness it in real life. I mean, do they really have any emotional construct? Because when you ask them, if it happened to them, sometimes they hit you with a smug remark, but really, what does that mean? What does that mean for you? But really, though, it's just like anything else. When you see somebody, or maybe let's say you don't see somebody, you have a higher respect for the thing. It's just like with gold, right? It's a rarity, and people are amazed by it. They're like, oh, this is basically a fucking rock. I mean, you can do stuff with it, but yeah, everybody's like, oh, this rock that's rare, it's worth something. But yet, now that there's 8 billion people on the earth, or I'm sure there's more now or whatever, or maybe there's less because people in countries are lying about our population. It turns out that everybody's like, oh, there's always another person. But that literally couldn't be farther from the truth. The fact that, the experiences, I mean, even of an animal, right? And obviously this is why I'm very big on, like, doing like a religious whatever supper or whatever, when you say your blessings or you bless an animal or whatever, or you give thanks to God for eating, is because, like, the experiences of whatever you are or whatever you're about to eat, it's crazy to me that people just want to kind of flush that down the toilet. It's really disturbing, if anything, that people are willing to just be like, oh, well, so and so, they're like, it's just a memory now to them. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, obviously I've said this before, I'm a Christian, so there is more after you're gone. There is. And I have my reasons as to why I believe, and I'm sure I'll explain it at another time, and why it's logical too, actually, I should say. Why it's not just like, I believe because Sky Daddy tells me. It's like, here, you know what? Fuck it. We'll get into it right now. So, certain things, like in the Old Testament, the predictions are incredible. I mean, we even learn in the beginning. Doesn't actually say in the beginning. It's, if you translate it to the original ancient Hebrew, it comes out to be the prince has come down from the home to destroy evil on the cross. Like, how crazy is that? So how could some mere tribesmen in the middle of the desert, how could they have known that unless something told that to them? And obviously people are in the future going to be like, oh, well, it could be Satan. Like, if that was true, then like Satan and God would be in an endless battle, because one could go back to the past and the other one would also be able to go back to the past. But the fact that time is linear, we even see this in the Old Testament again. I think it's with Daniel when he goes to heaven, when he sees a vision where the angels turn not as they went. It's talking about them facing a specific direction, which is forward. And if we know that everything in heaven mirrors God, yeah, they're going to face forward, because that's the direction of time, is forward. So if God's the only one that controls it, how could Satan win? Or here's another one, right? Like I had said this in a previous video, Yod He Vav He, right? Meaning like, behold the hand, behold the nail. Once again, Moses is told the name of God at the burning bush, and that's what God says he is. Hello, it's Jesus Christ. Behold the hand, behold the nail. Even after Jesus' resurrection, and he has the transfiguration moment with Moses and I think it might be Ezekiel or Elijah, I can't remember, at the mountaintop. The disciples are witnessing him talk to them in the past. I mean, like, it's so crazy. Like, they are witnessing Jesus talk to Moses and Elijah or Ezekiel, I can't remember right now, in the past. I mean, hello. If God can do that, what can't he do? He'll be able to turn the atoms in a tree into flowers, or do everything. That's why people, I think, I don't want to say falsely misclaim the fear of the Lord thing, because I think it's rather the fear in question is a knowing, is a knowledge of God. Like why would I be afraid of God if he loves me? Right? That's not a proper love. That's just neglect and abuse. So it's a little bit more complicated than that. But yes, I was going back to, and I guess this is a pretty good segue back into like why somebody's maybe not the first, or maybe, somebody won't be their first pick. God will always have you be his first pick. Now, it kind of sounds counterintuitive because we're all different people, but we are God's first pick. I mean, why else would he send his son, who is also God, to essentially take on the sins of the world from everybody of all time, so that we could be raised? Like, what greater love is that? Then this is what it says. What greater love is that than somebody who gives down or lets his life? I don't remember. Hold on. I think it gives up his life for his friends. And it's a great point. What greater love is that? Not really any. I couldn't imagine any. And obviously, yes, you have your parents and stuff, but like, the friends in question can be your parents, can be your siblings, can be your kids. I know plenty of parents who say that their kids are their friends. It's not like a hierarchical plane. If we learn that we're brothers and sisters in Christ, that means that somebody who could have been my grandparents or great-grandparents or whatever will also be a brother and sister in Christ. So it's more like a flat plane than it is a structure. But yeah, it sucks when, like I said earlier, you're not somebody's first pick, because everybody's just going to overlook you. And they do that. It's a shame, really, because like I said in a previous video, I hate referencing myself, but I have no other choice. I'm talking to myself, and I kind of stutter and stammer when I talk to myself. But the emotional impact of not being first on somebody's list is hard. It is hard. Because everybody will say like, oh, your parents, they'll love you more than anything and yada, yada, yada. But I don't know, is that true? Because there's plenty of kids that don't have loving parents. There's plenty of people in life that do not have these things. And even then, you have dysfunctional structure in a house where like the kid, and this happens a lot, where the kid, like, here's a good one, Matilda. Right? Matilda clearly has a better moral framework than her parents in the movie I'm talking about, and yet she is just constantly thrown to the wayside. And really the only thing that gives her freedom is the books that she reads. I wish there was a way that we could just fix this, but I don't really have a solution. I'm sure you might have a solution. I mean, better parenting, obviously, but how do you micromanage a population? And that's obviously not my goal. I had talked about this in another thing. Freedom obviously is the best option in all cases. because it gives you the ability to choose. And that's also what sucks, is that people will not choose you first. They won't. They're going to choose themselves first many a times, but they might choose somebody else. But I don't know. Yeah, just a thought, something for you guys to think about. All right. See ya.